year, he's been sacked 33 times, which is 11th most in the league, which could give the Vikings an idea of how they can attack him. But he's had pretty much a good running game to support him. And again, this year, the running game for Seattle, sixth best in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of it. And I think he's got a very supportive head coach in Pete Carroll who lets him do his thing. He's had good receivers, not great receivers. And even this year, Tyler Lockett, 63 catches, good player, 6 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, a rookie, 38 catches. But he has not had what you would call a dynamic number one receiver over time historically. Doug Baldwin was a good player and made a couple Pro Bowls, but I don't think he's at the level that perhaps Kirk Cousins has with Thielen and Diggs when they're on their game and when they're healthy. And so, yeah, you look at that and say the guy is phenomenal. He's just such a dual threat and maybe not running quite as much as he used to, but remembering the game last year when the Vikings went to Seattle on the Monday night in December, coincidentally, and he had kind of the big play that put the game away. It was a long 40-some yard run that set up a touchdown. It was a 3-0 game at halftime, very close game. And then all of a sudden, boom, Wilson makes a big run that sets up a touchdown. Next series, I think Kirk Cousins had a fumble, strip sack that was returned for a touchdown, and game over. It's 21-0. Vikings score a late garbage time touchdown in that game. And so, yeah, I think Russell Wilson is a force to be reckoned with. He's the best player on Seattle, maybe the best player in the league, along with Lamar Jackson, and will be a huge challenge on Monday night for the Vikings.
Absolutely. By the way, we have some news. We're recording this show on Tuesday morning. The Vikings have just waived Josh Doxson, and we haven't talked to anybody, but I think the clear implication is Adam Thielen's ready. They're happy with B.C. Johnson. They're happy with Treadwell as a fourth receiver. That's a good sign for the Vikings.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think that's the big question this week as they come off the bye, and the bye came at a great time for them with all these injuries. They had 5 starters out at the end of the game. Their last game, and so you look at from that standpoint, from the Denver game to today, 2 weeks later, this weekend, and yeah, if Thielen's ready to go, if Linval Joseph is back from his knee surgery, Harrison Smith, obviously a critical guy in that secondary that has struggled this year. The secondary has, not Harrison. He's had another Pro Bowl caliber year, but the corners have been struggling, and they need Harrison Smith badly in this key game against Seattle, and so you think about that group and those players, and Josh Klein, another guy who I think has been a big part of that offensive line resurgence this year that has allowed Cousins to be sacked only 22 times, which is 9th best in the league compared to last year when he was sacked 50 times or 40 times, whatever. But I think it's a situation where the running game, what they've done with the running game and the zone blocking scheme, but Josh Klein has now had 2 concussions this year. That's a concern. And talking about the secondary, Anthony Harris is the 5th starter that was out at the end of the Denver game, and he was dealing with a groin injury. Hopefully he'll be back too this week. So a big question on the health factor for the Vikings, and if they can get those guys back for the stretch run and keep them healthy.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Michael Thomas. Interesting development with him and with the way wide receivers are viewed in the NFL. We do want to thank, though, B52 Burgers and Brew locations in Lakeville, Minnesota, and in Inver Grove Heights. And if you ever go to the location in Inver Grove Heights, realize that you are not that far from the Vikings Museum and the Vikings facility. And if you're ever there during training camp, it's very convenient.
Right, Jim. And B52 Burgers and Brew, great restaurant, and love our newest sponsor, and have a terrific menu. 25 varieties of burgers and great entrees and appetizers, Monday night specials, and a fantastic Sunday brunch. And B52 Burgers and Brew in Inver Grove Heights and in Lakeville. And as you mentioned, the Inver Grove Heights location, 5 minutes from Vikings headquarters in Eagan, and they're the home of our Monday Night Purple show live on News Talk 830 WCCO. And our next show coming up will be Tuesday night after the Monday night game in Seattle. Tuesday night, December 3rd at B52 Burgers and Brew in Inver Grove Heights. And our special player guest will be Stephen Weatherly, and we'll have another Viking player joining Stephen for the show, talking about the Seattle game, looking ahead to the rematch with the Detroit Lions, who have been struggling lately, and that'll be the next opponent the following week at U.S. Bank Stadium, and just talking about the stretch run and hot topics around the NFL, get to know the players better. Stephen Weatherly, a really interesting guy, as we've talked before, plays 9 musical instruments and very much a Renaissance guy, and out of Vanderbilt, really great guy. And so looking forward to that show, and please check out b52burgersandbrew.com, their website, and hope to see you at B52 Burgers and Brew in Inver Grove Heights and in Lakeville, and in Inver Grove Heights for Monday Night Purple.
Stephen Weatherly is a great dude. I highly recommend him. Very interesting, very smart, very funny, very diverse, just a great guy. So I can highly recommend going out and visiting with Stephen and Jeff. So Michael Thomas is on pace for an NFL record that Chris Carter once held for receptions. He performs every week. He is a big part of a top contender. Should wide receivers be considered MVP candidates? Because we know they aren't. The question is, should they?
Yeah, I think they should be, and I think it's unfortunate for Michael Thomas, who has 104 receptions for 1,242 yards. He's on pace for 151 catches, which would break the NFL record of 143 by Marvin Harrison back in 2002. And you talk about Michael Thomas and the impact that he has on that New Orleans Saints offense, which is fantastic. Even when Drew Brees was out and Teddy Bridgewater was in, Teddy went 5-0 as a starter. They kept on pace, and Michael Thomas a big reason for that with his stellar play this season and really over the last several years. And he now is the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, around $20 million a year behind Julio Jones. And yeah, he should be considered for MVP. He won't be in the final analysis. He may be in the top 5, but in a season where Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson have been so prolific, so dynamic for winning teams, it's going to be very difficult for Michael Thomas to be able to do that. But he deserves to be in that conversation. And as we were talking before, a wide receiver has never won the AP MVP award. Jerry Rice won the NEA MVP back in 1987, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time since a running back, a non-quarterback won. I think, as we said, Adrian Peterson was the last one to win it. And speaking of Adrian Peterson, Jim, were you surprised that he didn't make the all-time 100-year NFL running back list? They had a dozen running backs, but no Adrian Peterson.
I guess I'm not surprised because it's just such a stat category. I mean, I don't even have the list in front of me, but Jim Brown has to be on there. Emmitt Smith has to be on there. Barry Sanders has to be on there.
Walter Payton.
Gale Sayers, Walter Payton. We're already 6 in, and I haven't really given it any thought yet. I just think it's and when you look at so many of these players, either they were all-time record holders, all-time greats. O.J. Simpson has to be on there.
Yes.
Or they really transformed their franchises, where Adrian was a great runner, but he was a limited blocker, he was a limited receiver, and when you had to rely on him, you kind of limited your offense, whereas I think all the other guys could really function in almost any offense.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think when I think of, and I know there are several of the old-time players that made that list, and so, but when you think about, for example, LaDainian Tomlinson's not on that list, and
he's
he was
phenomenal,
a great player, and so that's probably where Adrian is in that realm, and yeah, it's a tough list, tough group to make, and I still say the best running back I ever saw play in person was Barry Sanders, and I saw Walter Payton too. But Barry Sanders was just incredible to watch, and I watched him dodge about a dozen players. It seemed like Joey Browner was always chasing him and couldn't catch him. And Joey Browner was an all-pro defensive back for us back in the 80s. But Barry Sanders, what a great player he was. And Walter Payton, too. I saw him rush for 275 at Soldier Field in 1977. And, wow, great player, too, and a great leader on that Bear team.
But I agree with you. Barry Sanders did things that nobody else did. And other players might have done things better in terms of, production. But when you watch Barry Sanders, you were watching something you'd never seen before and haven't seen since.
No, that's right. And he just had it all. He had speed, power, incredible moves and just such a dynamic player, fantastic player. So, yeah, so Adrian doesn't make the list, and maybe it's apropos after the child abuse thing anyway.
That's the thing. Yeah, to me, he's a hard guy to root for.
Yes.
Let's wrap up this show with a little discussion about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, who finished second in the Viking hiring process in 1992 that went to Denny Green, and he ends up having an incredible career. National championship in college, great college coach, now major success in Seattle, one play away from winning consecutive Super Bowls, which hardly anybody ever does. But I do want to thank Bite Squad, bitesquad.com. Promo code is Talk North. Morning, noon, night, late night, home, office, anywhere else. Use the promo code Talk North to get your first delivery fee waived. After that, go to bitesquad.com, see what deal they have in your area, see what restaurants they have in your area. It'll be a pretty impressive list, I can guarantee. And then upload your information to the Bite Squad app. That's the easiest way to order through Bite Squad. I do it all the time. Bite Squad, bitesquad.com, Bite Squad the app. So Pete Carroll, I've always thought was a fascinating guy. I mean, going back to making the choke sign on the sideline when he was coaching, as a head coach. He's always been hyper emotional. He's always believed in treating his players really well. And now we've seen, listen, obviously it's impressive they've won a Super Bowl in Seattle. It's impressive he came that close to 2 consecutive Super Bowls. What's almost as impressive is he has basically lost the whole Legion of Boom defense. He's had complete turnover at receiver, at running back, and he's still winning.
Yeah, and Pete, I love Pete, longtime friend of mine. We worked together with the Vikings when he was the defensive backfield coach here. And I almost worked with him in New England when I interviewed with the Patriots back in '99 and ended up going to Tennessee. And Pete was the head coach there. And I thought we were going to work together at that time. And so, yeah, he's a terrific coach and obviously great success at the college level and at the professional level. Done a great job with the Seahawks. So enthusiastic. And he's had the whammy on the Vikings, by the way.
Yeah, he has.
He's 5-0 against the Vikings in his coaching career in Seattle. And so I think that it certainly adds another level of intrigue to the conversation and to the debate over who's going to win this game and who's going to emerge among these teams this year. But Pete Carroll has had great success and found a way to beat the San Francisco 49ers a couple weeks ago, too, which was impressive in San Francisco.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think that Pete deserves to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year, too.
Absolutely.
Even though I think there are a lot of coaches that have done a great job this year. Pete is among them, definitely. Kyle Shanahan's probably, you got to figure, the front runner along with John Harbaugh.
And one of the great things Pete ever did was they gave all that money. My God, I even forgot the guy's name. He gave all that money to the Packer backup, and he installed him as their starter. And then Russell Wilson's sitting there in the draft. They take Russell Wilson. They get a look at Russell Wilson and say, nope, sorry. Russell Wilson's our starting quarterback. It takes guts to say, okay, my franchise just spent all this money on this quarterback, and we're not even going to play him.
Yeah, exactly right. And he saw the talent that he had, and you give credit to John Schneider, too, who has some local ties here also.
Matt Flynn, by the way.
Matt Flynn, right, exactly, former Packer backup. And John Schneider went to college at St. Thomas and a terrific guy, too, and happy for him with his success and out in Seattle. And just the guys that they brought in, it hasn't always been number one picks. And you think about Richard Sherman was a fifth rounder. Mm-hmm. Cam Chancellor was a fifth rounder. Russell Wilson, a third rounder. And these guys, many-time All-Pros. And so just a free agent signing of a Marshawn Lynch, for example, that they've done and figured out ways to get it done. And kind of pulled off a trade that I thought was really a little bit surprising this year when they were able to get Jadeveon Clowney out of Houston. Wow, what a steal that was for the talent level of that guy. And
that's what strikes me about Pete. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to take somebody that was under the radar. He's not afraid to take somebody that might be considered controversial. He's not afraid to make a big move. And so often when you see successful teams, you see a lack of fear.
That's right. Now, who are we picking this week, Jim? It's a tough one.
I just, I like the way the Vikings are playing. I like a lot about what's going on with the Vikings. I just don't like them on a Monday night in Seattle. So I'm going to take Seattle finding a way. I'm going to say 22-19. Seattle pulls it out.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this game, honestly. I think it's a tough pick. And what I'm looking at is that Seattle defense that has kind of fallen down this year a little bit, and they're 29th against the pass in the league. Both teams pretty strong against the run. Vikings 6th and